Hello everyone, and this is part 3 of how to create a guided buying and bids in a buy process for tactical sourcing. So this is a 5-part series, and the whole point is to show you how to set up a tactical sourcing process using the guided buying and bids in a buy form feature. So the first two parts we discussed how to set up your tactical sourcing forms for different categories and then linking them to a new guided buying tile. So part 3 we'll be discussing how to configure the sourcing touch policies. So with your tactical sourcing forms, you want to be able to distinguish when it should be self-service, so when your end users can request a commodity and send it out to the 3 preferred suppliers without the intervention of your procurement team, when you want your procurement team to be involved or not, using the low touch and high touch policies as well. Once we've done that, we'll discuss how to set up your preferred suppliers and then configuring the procurement policy based on your categories and commodities. The real value area is we're standardizing the tactical sourcing process. In part 1 and part 2, we explain how to create a new sourcing form and then create a new guided buying tile and linking it back to that form we created. In part 3, we'll discuss how to set up the sourcing touch policies. And what we mean by that is how do you want the system to interact with your users when they're using that specific form. So do you want it to be self-service where your users can request the form, add their preferred suppliers and receive quotes from the suppliers without the intervention of a procurement team or any other team in the organization? Or you can set it up to be low touch or high touch, which means that your end users can publish their sourcing form and then it'll go to a specific team who will either then validate or add more information to that form before it's submitted to the suppliers. So let's have a look at how that's done. Again, you'll need guided buying administrator access to be able to set this up. So once you do have that access, you'll go into the administrator side of guided buying. We'll go into the manage policies section and you should see the supplier and touch policies set up here. I've already created a few in the system, but what you can do is download the sample policy and that'll help you guide you through it. Let's go ahead and just export the policy real quick. And we've got it open right here. So there is 5 key tabs here at the bottom and we'll go through them one by one. The first one here is the description tab, and what we want to do is we want to create a new policy. So let's just call it catering policy, and this will be the unique key pretty much across all 5 tabs, and we'll just give it a description here. So policy for all catering services, and that's pretty much it. So if you go to the key definitions tab here, again it's just explaining how you want the system to interact with this specific policy on that form. So we'll just set it up to be commodity specific and location specific. So if we just go ahead and copy those 2 attributes, and the commodity for catering that we selected on that form was 90101603, and then we'll put the location as Australia. In the tier definition tab here, so again, this will explain how you want the system to trigger the different exceptions and the different processes. So you'll see here for an existing tile and policy for marketing, we've set it up to be low touch, self-service and high touch. What we'll do is we'll copy something and we'll use a similar process. So what we'll do is we'll do very basic policies here. So we'll do one for low touch and then one for high touch. So the low touch here, we'll just call it low touch. The phase here is, again, is the request quotes phase. What we'll do is we'll set it up based on field. The field will be the price, and it's a constant value, and what we'll just say is $100,000. So any value less than $100,000 will trigger the low touch policy. and then we'll just do the high touch policy, and then again we'll use a very similar process here. But in this case, anything over $100,000 will trigger the high touch policy here. So to understand how you can use the different operators, the different processes, we suggest to download the Guided Buying Administrator Guide, and it'll explain all the different scenarios that you can use and leverage here. Again, in this case, we're just using a very straightforward and simple process. If you go to the next tab, actually let's just give this a name, catering low touch, and then catering high touch. And if you go to the template configuration, this explains which templates you want the system to trigger based on the criteria. So again, we've got the catering policy here that we want to use, and then here you want to select which name for that. So I think we selected catering low touch and catering high touch. And you can just double check if you go back to the tier. So you'll see, yep, we've got those two policies here. If we go back here, you just select them. And now the more difficult part here is just finding the sourcing template name. So what you need to do here is you need to log into your Ariba sourcing module. So if you go into your Ariba sourcing module, again, you'll need service manager or you need administrator access here to be accessed as part of the system. If we go to the manage and go to the templates section of the system, there should be an existing guided buying templates form there by default, where if you've got any custom templates that you want users to select for your policy, feel free to select it here. Let's just go into that guided buying template, and you want to copy the ID that's set up for this specific template. So if we copy this ID and then go back to the Excel sheet, you just want to populate that in the sourcing template name field there. And then the last column here is the auto publish. So do you want this request to be published automatically once the end user has submitted the form or not? For low touch, we'll set this to true. And for high touch, we'll set this to false, which means that we want the request to go to a specific team to validate before they can publish it. And then the last one here is just setting up any sort of messaging you want the users to see on the screen. Again, we'll just select the catering policy. Again, that's the unique name we use across the 5 different tabs at the bottom. And then we'll set for the 2 policies that we created, so the low touch and then the high touch. And let's just copy that down across as well. And again, here you have different types of messaging. So you can either send an informative message, request a justification from a user, or an error message, meaning that they can't actually purchase this commodity using this form. In this specific scenario, we'll just add informative messaging here. So for the low touch, we can just say your request will be auto published to vendors. And then for the high touch one, we can just say your request requires approval from the procurement team. Again, you don't have to fill out these next ones here, but these are drop-down values that the user can select if they want to. Once they submit the quote here, you can add a messaging as well. So let's just say your request has been published. And then for the next one, for the high touch one, we'll just say your request has been sent to the procurement team. And that's pretty much it. So once you've filled this out, again, if you want to understand the different scenarios, the different values that you can choose from, go through the Guided Buying Administrator guide, and it will help you understand how you can configure this to your own liking. So let's go back to the Guided Buying Administrator screen. And we're going to go to the import policy section here, and we're going to try and upload the policy that we just set up in the Excel sheet. So give it a few seconds, let the system upload the new policies, and you can see here that it's uploaded the 2 existing ones and it's just created the catering policy that we just created. So now we've shown you how to set up your sourcing touch policies. You can test this out by going to the catering form that we created in part 1 and 2 and play around with the values, and you should see that the system should trigger the different policies that we set up. That's all I had. Thanks guys, and stay tuned for part 4.